Republican State Senator Bryan Hughes of Mineola, thank you so much and welcome back to Ion Politics.
It's good to be back on. Thank you.
You bet. So you have filed a bill that addresses some concerns about the near abortion ban in the state that seeks, I guess, to add clarity for doctors and other providers out there as it relates to the do's and don'ts when you should not perform an abortion. So first of all, why do you think this is necessary? And walk us through the highlights of the bill.
Thank you. Be glad to. And you've covered this matter before. It's been in the news. Uh, Texas law has always, pro-life laws in Texas have always recognized the life of the mother, protection of the life of the mother, a serious risk to the mother's life. And so that's always been the law. When we passed the heartbeat law back in 2021, we used the existing definition already in statute. But after the heartbeat law and after Roe versus Wade was overturned, the statistics show us that in those cases when a mom's life is in danger, most hospitals, most doctors are getting this right. It's a sad situation, but we know there have been 140 plus cases since Roe was overturned where the doctor has done an abortion to save the life of the mother. So most doctors and hospitals are getting this right, but some are not. We've heard from some moms. There have been stories in the media and other places about hospitals and doctors that were not treating moms with ectopic pregnancies or moms who had suffered a miscarriage, situations like that. So even though the law says those moms should be treated, we want to make it even clearer and remove any excuse. So this bill does a couple of things. It takes what has always been the medical emergency standard in Texas and makes sure the language is consistent across all of our statutes. It takes into account court rulings so lawyers don't get confused about what the words might mean. And it also requires that physicians who practice obstetrics, gynecology, that those physicians must take a course so they know what the law is. And it also requires a course be available to every lawyer so that hospital lawyers can see it. These courses have to be available freely. And for the doctors, the course is required as a condition of renewing a license. So our goal is to make the statutes crystal clear so there's no excuse, no delay in treating moms that need help and making sure that docs know what the law is.
I know there are various Democratic lawmakers who signed on to this. They support it, at least they've indicated so publicly. And so I'm wondering, did you work with them at all just to, you know, try to make sure that there wouldn't be any other issue that pops up?
Yes, we've worked with a lot of groups, a lot of people. We've worked with moms. We've worked with pro-life groups. Virtually everyone we work with in Austin has been involved in this. The Texas Medical Association, the Texas Hospital Association. So a lot of people have been contributing to get this language right. And yes, you're going to see Republicans and Democrats, conservatives across the board for this bill. Abortion is a difficult issue. And we want to protect the life of that little baby while we love and support the mom. Working at those details can be hard, can be divisive, but almost everybody agrees the life of the mother should be protected. So I believe we're going to be able to come together and get this done.
And what do you think the impact of the bill will be? How quickly, because, as you know, there were reports, there were lawsuits against the state of Texas from mothers, women who were, adversely impacted. And so what do you think, comes out of this?
Part of the reason we're working with the Texas Medical Association and the Texas Hospital Association is because they have assured us they'll work with us to get the word out. So even as this bill is being debated, stories like the one you're doing, we believe the word is going to get out. And so that's the goal, making sure that doctors and hospitals know what the law is. And so we're optimistic this is going to work.
And as far as how does this impact, you brought up the Heartbeat Act and the other law that went into effect after Roe v. Wade was overturned. Does this impact them as far as any of the provisions in those two laws?
So we are still protecting the little unborn baby. That's not going to change in Texas. Texas is a pro-life state. We know we can save the life of the unborn child while we love and respect and support the mother. So this is not creating new exceptions for abortion. We'll still be a pro-life state. That's not going to change. But that life of the mother, that serious risk to the mother's health, that's going to be clarified. The law is already there, but it's going to be even clearer, and no excuses for not following the law.
And the other provisions are still in effect as far as if a doctor is found guilty to perform an abortion that should not have been, they face fines, they face criminal charges, civil lawsuits, etc. Is that correct?
Jack, that's a great point. If a mom is experiencing a medical emergency, which is a definition that's recognized in the law, if a mom's experiencing a medical emergency, that's the exception to our pro-life laws in Texas. For illegal abortions in Texas, any doctor doing that is going to be held accountable. That is not going to change.
And do you anticipate any pushback, perhaps, from Republican lawmakers on this?
Well, again, the life of the mother is something that just about everybody agrees on. Of course, we have to get the details right, but we have talked to conservative Republicans, Democrats, folks all across the spectrum. A lot of people have questions about this, but so far we've seen no opposition. So we hope it stays that way, but we'll work through the process.
And I did want to ask you a couple of other matters. I noticed that the U.S. Department of Justice filed a court document yesterday saying that they have basically dropped the Biden era lawsuit against the state of Texas for Senate Bill 4 from the fourth special session 2 years ago with regards to the law that makes it a state crime for a migrant to cross into Texas. I know there are still other parties, other plaintiffs in that case, but what's your reaction to the fact that the Trump DOJ has dropped the case on its part?
We're encouraged to see that. As you know, border enforcement is historically a federal responsibility, but it's just a fact. And voters of all political stripes agree the feds have not been doing their job. So Texas had to. So Texas taxpayers had to. Of course, we were sued for that. So we're glad to see this administration agreeing that Texas did the right thing.
What impact do you think that'll have on the case, considering there are, at least two other, maybe three other plaintiffs in that case?
I believe the case will move forward, but we already felt good about our position. We already felt good that we were on constitutional ground. But this should make it easier for Texas to win that case if the other plaintiffs even decide to go forward.
I've seen a number of election bills filed, and you have considered them on the State Affairs Committee that you chair. Are there any in particular that are critical in your mind to passing this session?
Yes, Senate Bill 16. And this issue, folks are familiar with. It's about requiring proof of citizenship when you register to vote. Of course, only U.S. citizens get to vote in U.S. elections. Not a radical concept, but under federal law, when someone registers to vote, the state is not allowed to ask for proof of citizenship. So we've been working for a while to address that. Now, the feds are talking about passing, I think it's the SAVE Act, which would change that, but we're not waiting on Washington. So Senate Bill 16 looks at what other states have done and what the U.S. Supreme Court has done, and this will allow Texas to verify proof of citizenship when someone registers to vote. In Texas, you're already required to show proof of citizenship when you get your driver license. But until now, the feds have not let us require proof of citizenship to register to vote. So Senate Bill 16, which will be heard in the State Affairs Committee in the next week or so, is going to fix that. So we're very excited about that bill.
And if that does pass, is that just for state and local elections, or does that cover federal elections as well?
It's a great question. So the way the bill is written, when someone registers to vote, they'll be asked to show proof of citizenship. If they have proof of citizenship, we will register them in the state system and the federal system. If someone comes to register to vote, we ask for proof of citizenship and they don't have it, they'll be registered according to federal law in the federal system only. And so when you show up to vote, depending on whether you are in the federal system or the state system, you'll be given a federal only ballot or a full federal and state ballot. The law is clear we can do this because those federal rules apply to federal elections only. So if we get this in place, we'll be able to require proof of citizenship when folks register and deal with that at the state level.
And do you see that getting through the House?
We're very optimistic in the House. There's a lot of support for it. The Senate passed a similar measure last time that didn't quite make it through the House. We have an earlier start this time. We believe this is going to pass both houses and get to the governor's desk for his signature.
And on the subject of elections, I remember the state got rid of what was called ERIC, right? That was to make sure that all the rolls were clean, right? In other words, that dead people aren't on there, people who are on the rolls who shouldn't be, etc. Did the state ever end up replacing that?
It's a great question. So the state has entered into negotiations with a lot of different states so we can compare notes and see when someone, as you say, leaves one state, moves to another. The Secretary of State is negotiating those with several states. We also have legislation this time so that when someone moves and they make the normal notifications, we'll get that information as well. DPS has a lot of that information when someone gets a driver license. So we have bills this session to make sure that the DPS information and the cross-state move information all comes to the Secretary of State so we can catch those cases. So the answer is yes. We're doing 3 or 4 different things to make sure we're getting the voter rolls clean with those cross-state moves.
And I did have one other question for you, and that is, we recently explored the topic, got a lot of people talking about it across the country, and that is, switching the clocks back to daylight saving time. And I know there are a number of bills filed in the Senate. There were 2 years ago. Are you going to give any of these bills filed a hearing in the State Affairs Committee this year?
Thank you. I believe we will have a hearing on that subject, and I'd be curious to see if you did any polling. A lot of folks I talked to would like to go to daylight savings time and then stay there, not switch back and forth. Other folks want to stay on standard time. As you probably know, under current federal law, if we opt out of daylight savings time, we can stay there. No questions asked by the feds. But if we want to go to daylight savings time and stay there, we have to get permission from the Fed. So we're sorting through all that. I believe there will be a hearing on that this session.
I did not do any polling on that. We did just do briefly discuss this with people, man on the street interviews, if you will, and people are all over the place on this.
That's
And
been my experience.
yeah, exactly. So, but you think there will be a hearing on it at the very least?
I believe there will be.
All right. Any other priorities that you're looking at this session?
Well, thank you so much. You've hit the high spots, and I'll probably bug you about some more stuff, but thank you for covering these.
All right. Republican State Senator Bryan Hughes of Mineola, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jack.